The views and opinions expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media is strictly prohibited.
So welcome to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with the panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today, our panel will be answering listener emails. And our question is from Catherine, who lives in Stockholm, Sweden. Catherine asks, we here in Europe are very nervous about the recent elections. And Catherine, you are not alone. Mark mentioned on one of your podcasts that the election results are due to voter apathy. If this is true, can American democracy be saved? And what do you think would need to happen to turn this around? Who would like to take this first? That's an excellent question.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And I mean, there's a lot of things that we've said on this podcast that would probably have to happen. And I do believe that a lot of it has to do with voter apathy. When you look at the numbers of Democrats that came out and voted, and this is high stakes. You would think that people would have thought it that way. Only 32% of Democrats and only 34% of Republicans came out and voted. That's not very good, especially in such a high stakes election. So yeah, I put it down to a lot to voter apathy. What has to happen? Well, I think there's a bunch of things that, again, and we've talked about it before. Number one, get rid of the Electoral College. It's arcane. And I think it basically makes people in a state like California say, well, heck, my vote doesn't really count as much as it does somebody from Wyoming. Why am I bothering? Why am I bothering with this? I think we should get rid of the arcane idea of voting on Tuesday during a work week. It's stupid. We're a country of 330 million people about. And hey, give us 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, when people can actually go out and do it. I think term limits are something that we need to enact. And I think we need to have term limits not only on the legislature, we have to have term limits on the judiciary, including the Supreme Court. How many times are really great judges, just the Supreme Court, how many times are people passed over that would be absolutely excellent Supreme Court justices because they're too old? And we're going to put somebody younger in because they're going to be there for a lot longer period of time. So again, we cut our own nose off to spite our own face. Yeah, okay, you're 60 years old. Yeah, you might only live another 10 years. Great, but you might be the best jurist out there, but we're going to take somebody that's, 50 because we know that they're going to be on the court for the next 25 or 30 years. It makes zero sense. So yeah, there's an awful lot of things that we could do. And we've got to start with, why is the American electorate apathetic? And I think they feel powerless. And when you feel powerless, you basically throw up your arms and say, the heck with it.
Yeah, I'd say that more troubling than apathy in like an election with people not coming out to vote is the not really caring about the quality of people and their character. That I actually find more disturbing, that there's a whole bunch of people out there who, for example, don't care about sexual assault as a disqualifier. That there's a whole bunch of people out there who don't really seem to think that somebody being convicted by a jury of peers is a big deal and can sort of swat that away. Those are the sort of things that I think are really, truly frightening about America right now. But I do believe that can turn around. We've seen this not to the degree that it is happening now, but we have seen before that people are willing to compromise their values, the values of the country, for various reasons. And, we saw that during the W. Bush administration, where, we invaded another country based on lies, and we reelected the person who did it. That was a truly frightening thing for America. All the things that Nixon did is another thing that, a large part of the population sort of like stood by him during all that, right up until the day he resigned. he had a pretty high approval rating amongst certain kinds of people out there. It probably should trouble us that these are not unfounded claims, and these are not just political persecutions. These are verdicts by juries, and we should begin to hold our leadership up to higher standards than we are right now.
Yeah, our political class is really pathetic here in the United States. We definitely need a better political class. And I think that comes from not having career politicians. When you have a career politician, all they want to do is keep their job. Where if there's a time limit on how long they can remain in the position, then they can actually vote their conscience and what they can do for people in their constituency. You look at so many people here where I live in South Carolina, but we were having a discussion. We were talking about our congressman. And the question that came up, what has he done for us? And nobody could come up with an answer that specifically said, oh, well, he got this passed through and that was good for us. There's nothing there that he did for us. I mean, there was no even issues that he addressed that maybe we were facing. If we don't have that political class that is just so reliant on maintaining that job for whatever reason, but that they're in there for a specific period, and governors, the governors of the United States, many of them are term limited. And some of those are very, very good governors. They basically get the job. They know they're going to be there for 1 or 2 terms, and they just do the job because they're not worried about getting reelected again. They know it's over with, and that does not make them lame ducks. But I think in the Congress, that also, and even in the Senate, that comes down to committee assignments. Committee assignments are made in the House of Representatives and in the Senate based on seniority. Not based on who's the best for the position, not based on who would be the person who has a constituency with a vested interest in the committee that they're in, but instead, who's senior. And there are probably some very good people in our political class that basically are put to the back burner because somebody that's 85 years old stands in their way from seniority. And I know the argument is, well, that's an awful lot of experience. Well, yeah, that is an awful lot of experience. But what kind of experience is it? Is it really good experience? I mean, is it beneficial experience? Or is it just, I've been here experience? And in a lot of cases with the United States, it's, I've been here a long time experience. And that doesn't help anybody. So, yeah, I think we can rectify it. I think it's doable. I agree with Scott in the sense that we definitely need a better political class. But I also think that also the fact that people saw that we were going to ignore somebody that's a convicted felon, that we were going to ignore somebody who was accused and held liable for sexual assault. I think that also contributed to the apathy that many people in the country had about it. It's like they look at it and say, we don't deserve to be saved. Let's let it go with the way it's going to go, and we'll go from there.
Well, people also saw that leaders like judges and others were afraid, and those who did not back down were cast aside. In such an environment for the regular person, then it becomes very easy to say, well, clearly what can I do? As Mark said, and as you said also, Scott, people just think, well, nothing I do or say can make any difference. And in their own families, people have terrible rifts because of political disagreements. The situation is fairly bad. Thank you again for your question. We appreciate it. So that's all for today from the Nova Society. We'll see you again next time.
So that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this week's episode, the Phoenix Research Group, an independent research consortium offering social issue solutions to NGOs and international government agencies through multidisciplinary, nonpartisan, and unbiased research. We'd also like to thank our podcast partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Podkite, who does all our analytics, iHeart Radio, where people get their music and podcasts, Apple iTunes, the largest source of music and podcasts on the internet, Spotify, the most popular source for the Nova Society. The Nova Society is available on all these and other quality platforms mentioned in our description. We'd like to thank our listeners. Without you, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a comment, a question, or would like to be a guest on the Nova Society, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. Always remember, the power of society is knowledge. So for Dr. Scott Gershwer, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Be well, and we hope to see you again next time.